What up, what up, what up? It's your boy DFSUpNorth, aka Josh Thomas, back with another 10 under 10 GPP podcast where I talk to you about my 10 favorite plays this week. 5 from Draftkings and 5 from Fanduel, helping you to take down a GPP. And can we talk for a second about last week? If you watch this podcast, you probably made some money last week. We nailed the top 3 quarterbacks last week. Really impressive. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But before we get there, I wanted to let you guys know that we have offered the VIP 50 discount code again, right? We brought it back 50% off your first month of DFS Army VIP. So you get everything for $44.99. That means that you get NFL, you get golf, which we're covering right now. You get college football, and NBA starts back up next week. And maybe even more importantly, NHL is back, and our NHL guys have been on maybe the biggest heater I've seen in a while. Actually, I put some new screenshots in here. Let's scroll through. You get a little sneak peek. But yeah, how about last week? DFS Freak gets 70K, 219.28. What an unreal score. We got Bobby winning the million a couple years ago. But then Advantage, second and third, right? Was in first and second all night, and then got a crappy goal from Minchikov with 5 minutes left. So 30K for our boy Advantage. And then look at this. Not only do we do it all here, we do NASCAR as well. My boy Hall, Redneck Hall, taking down how much there? 12K. So we've been doing some big things over here at DFS Army. And if you want to get involved, you can use that code VIP50 to get 50% off your first month. And like I said, come join us here. So as you guys know, with this podcast or this article that is free every single week to you, if you like having it free still, make sure you hit that like button and make sure you hit the subscribe so you know when this drops every week, or you get access to things like tournament tactics on Friday when they're going live, so you can get in there and ask questions as well. But you know that my strategy every single week, my DFS motto from the famous philosopher Richard Bobby: if you ain't first, you ain't last. First or last, I ain't here to min cash. So we try to find guys that are going to be under 10% owned every single week. At least at the time of the writing, things change. Sometimes guys sneak up there, but yeah, we try to find these guys that are low on that can help you take down GPP. And as you can see from the week 6 recap, we did pretty well. But we also had some spots where we struggled a little bit too. It's never going to be a 10 for 10. It would be awesome if we hit every single week. But starts off with cover boy last week. Baker Mayfield had a fantastic week, 4.9x value, which is one of the highest that I remember in doing this article for the last couple of years. Really impressive stuff from Baker. Not only that, but like Baker threw some picks last week just to keep the Saints in the game, which, also helped his overall fantasy score, which is always nice to see. So he was the QB1 last week. Tyjae Spears got hurt early, but it was the Tony Pollard show there. Jamison Williams had a fantastic week, returning 3.1x value, 17.7 points. I think he's due for another one here. We'll talk about him in a little bit. It was the Demario Douglas show in New England with Drake May. It was not the Jalen Polk show like we expected, so that one hurt us a little bit. And then Kyle Pitts put up a TE8. Tight ends a wasteland, but it was a decent return for Kyle Pitts last week. Wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. They didn't have to throw the ball that much, mostly because Bijan and Tony Algier were just carving up this Panthers defense. On FanDuel, we went 2 and 3 here. We got Jared Goff, 28.1 points. You'll hear from him again in a little bit. Having a great game against the Dallas Cowboys. And then Jordan Love, QB3, 3.1x return value, which was huge. Tyrone Tracy put everybody's lineups over the hump in the hammer game with the Giants late at night. Again, we talked about the Falcons. Darnell Mooney just couldn't get it done. But then, hey, we also hit the wide receiver 2 here with A.J. Brown against the Browns last week. So QB1, QB2, QB3, we're pretty happy about that. Average return on DK 2.24. Could have been a lot better without Jalen Polk in there. And FanDuel was 2.76. Really our overall best week of the year. So let's get to it and talk about our DraftKings plays for the week. We got Sam Darnold, 7.6. I actually just checked. He's crawled up to about 8%. But I'm just like, I get that this is like the millionth week in a row, but when will people learn? When? That Darnold is an elite QB. This guy was the offensive player of the month in September. This is a high total game. He's at home, and Aaron Jones is questionable to play. They are going to throw the ball. The Lions are pretty good in their front seven. Like, what are we doing here? He should be 20% owned. Smash Darnold. Pair him up with Jefferson and Addison, run it back with Amon-Ra or Jameson Williams, who I love this week, or even maybe like a sneaky, I mean, not sneaky, but Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are both coming in a little under-owned here. And the Vikings are dealing with some injuries in their, like Cashman's going to be out. They're finally getting some sort of injury issues. So we're really going to find out what sort of team they are against the Lions this weekend. And I'm excited to see what they do. All right, next up is a little bit speculative here. But Nick Chubb is healthy. He's been limited in practice, but his practice window is open. The expectation is that he's going to play here. The Bengals are terrible against the run. Do I think Nick Chubb's going to get a full workload this week? Absolutely not. Do I think he's going to get 15 touches? Yeah, I do. I really think that he'll get in that range. And at 6,000, this is a guy that should be 9K when he is fully healthy and in the offense. There's no weapons left, right? So they're gonna give Chubb the opportunity here. And I think that he smashes value at 6K. Noah Brown. I want to just check here. I feel like maybe the what I'm seeing a little bit here is that the chalk this week is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster, right? He's way underpriced on DraftKings. And at least in my head, that narrative is that everybody's going to play Juju this week. And I'm just double checking ownership here to see if that sort of gut feeling is correct. But I think a great pivot off of Juju is Noah Brown. All right. Gets to go against the Panthers, which is a prime matchup. Now, the concern here is that potentially we get the same thing that happened to Mooney and Kyle Pitts last week, in that they just sort of get worked out because they don't need to do anything, because the Panthers are so bad that my grandma could run for 100 yards against them. But that being said, I do think that at this price, Noah Brown is, Juju's 10. And I got currently Noah's at 6.1. All right. So actually a little bit down from what this is. I forethought, like, he has to do barely anything here, guys. Like, he does not need to do anything. He's getting tons of volume. He's at 8 targets last week. Like I said, the only concern here is that they get the run game going with Brian Robinson, hopefully back for them this week. And Jaden Daniels doesn't throw the ball enough in a game where they should win by 100 against the terrible Panthers offense. And actually, the nice thing about the Commanders players is that the Commanders defense is pretty terrible too. So they're going to be in games every single week, and Daniels is going to have to smash. Next two, we got Tank Dell. Stepped into a big role with Nico Collins out, and he's going to be sidelined for an extended period of time. Led the team in targets last week, was able to find the end zone. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be some sort of like PPR monster here. But he's so crafty in space that you get him the ball in space, he is going to make something happen. The Pack have not been great against the pass all year. I think that the Texans have a pretty a competitive game here. I do think that the Packers win, but that's just more so based on their offense than their defense. And then finally on DraftKings, the last guy, with Adams out the door now, officially, I mean, he's been out the door for weeks, we get Brock Bowers. 5,800, way too low owned. 5,800 is, I mean, I get a little bit expensive. Even at, the L, I think he's going to get towards like 6 or 7, but Bowers 10 targets last week with Adams out. 12 targets the week before with Adams out. Like, the value is there. The Rams are not great. Like, I don't know why more. I just was under the assumption that Bowers would be the chalk this week. And when he came in at this sort of ownership projection and now maybe slightly climbing a little, I'm still a little bit shocked that he is not the guy. So I kind of love Brock Bowers this week. All right. Switching over to FanDuel. Brock Purdy, my boy. The Purdster. Is that his nickname? I don't even know. But Purdy is in a great spot here against the Chiefs. Chiefs defense is good, but this offense with Purdy at the helm is so efficient. He's pretty much a lock for 20 points. In a potentially high scoring game, I'm really high on Brock Purdy. I'm just double checking ownership in the background. It's gone up about 0.5%. But team total is 47. Implied team or the game total is 47. The implied team total is 24. Like, the Niners D has not been up to the task so far this year. I think that this is a blow up potential game. And you can get Purdy, Debo, and Kittle at like 11 or 12% now with the updated ownerships. Like, that combo, that team stack. Mason's dealing with a shoulder injury. I think he plays, but the Chiefs have been solid against the run. The 49ers are not going to be able to run the ball here. If the Chiefs offense is rolling and they have to keep up, I really think that this is a spot similar to what we saw Jared Goff in last week against the Cowboys, where he can put up a big GPP winning score. Another guy, again, I was just talking about them, but I love Jared Goff this week as well. I think that this Vikings and Lions game absolutely blows up. I talked about Blake Cashman being out. He runs the D. He's the headphone guy, or the earpiece guy for the defense. I think that could lead to some issues for the Vikings. This defensive secondary is not great. So really any of Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, even a cheap Tim Patrick, who I thought looked fantastic, made an unreal grab last week, are in good spots. Sammy Laporta is sitting on a game at some point. His target share has gone down fairly significantly this year, which is not great. But it's not like he's gotten worse. It's just they're just not going to him enough. So big fan of Laporta as well. And like I said, I think that this game is going to absolutely blow up. And I want every side of the ball here. Moving on, looking at running back, we got Kareem Hunt. We were just talking about the Chiefs, whereas you can't run necessarily on the Chiefs. You can run on the 49ers this year. 27 carries, 102 and a tutty for a guy that was playing Madden 3 weeks ago. Insane. The matchup is tougher than the Saints. Absolutely. But this is not the 49ers of old. And I talked about, hey, Juju's massively mispriced on DraftKings. I think he's going to get some ownership. Usually I don't love running back wide receiver combos, especially without a quarterback on your lineup, in your lineup, but I think it's pretty viable here. Right back to the well with Darnell Mooney. The Seahawks are terrible, guys. The Seahawks are not a good team. Mooney is very, very boomer bust. But with Kirk Thuggins, if you saw his press conference the other day, where I kind of do love the guy. He's a great leader. He's a good enough QB, and he's such a great option for Darnell Mooney because he can get the ball out there a little bit. I think that he can rack up a bunch of points in a hurry. And finally, a speculative tight end. Now, I feel like this should be like the 10 under 10 injury report this week, because it's a bunch of guys that or a couple of guys that are dealing with injuries who are maybe going to play in Chubb and now Hawkinson. But the practice window was open for Hawkinson on October 4th. Got a limited session in Wednesday, got a limited session in today on Thursday. I think he goes this week against his former team. And if he does, he's a sneaky GPP play. Like, he was a monster last year. He was talking in his press conference today, or in his media availability, that his GPS is like tracking him as faster now than he was last year, which is sort of wild to think about, right? Like, that's crazy. So he is a legitimate downfield threat. I think that Darnold will use him a ton here. So if Hawk gets the go, it won't. We likely won't hear until at least Saturday. I think that the ownership will be crazy low on FanDuel, but that $6,000 price on FanDuel is outstanding. And so if he goes, we like him here. If he doesn't go, I'm not playing Johnny Munt. You can flop this to Laporta, and I'll count his stats for me if he's under 10% owned. So that, my friends, is your 10 under 10. Let me know in the comments who you think your favorite play is this week that's going to be under 10% owned, and we will I'll give you a shout out next week if you nail one of the top QBs or running backs or tight ends or whoever. All right, and remember, guys, use that code VIP50. That gets you 50% off your first month. It is currently October 17th, right? You get a month. You're in the middle of November. You got NBA starting. Like, we might even have college basketball. We crush college basketball too. So get involved, and we will see you guys in the Discord. Have a great week 7. I will chat with y'all soon. Cheers.